Okay, we're going to talk about doing a two-handed harmonization of I'll Be With You in an Apple Blossom Time, page 131. This is different than the left-hand jump bass version that we'll be studying. This involves the left hand only playing a single bass line, while the right hand provides a dyad or a two-note harmonization on beat 2 of every measure. So the right hand is also responsible of playing the melody. You may want to sight read through just the melody as it appears on the lead sheet on page 131. We're doing the first 16 measures or bars of this piece. The melody is very familiar. And this largely will be played with the upper fingers of the right hand because we will be relying on these two fingers to do a lot of the harmonization. So first I'd like to just start with talking about the left hand bass movement, because what we'll want to do is put a left hand note on beat 1 and beat 3 of each measure. So that means beat 1 is actually going to be a half note held for 2 beats. The third beat is just a single quarter note. What we'll be doing is returning to that fundamental pitch. So the C chord that's given to us at the beginning, that's the root that we want in our left hand. So just very quickly, you could even go through and familiarize yourself where the left hand will be on the downbeats of this piece. For example, here's where we'll be starting. In measure 3, we'll use E as our root. Measure 5, we'll use an F, and so forth. Now, what I would like to encourage you to do is to move the bass around, much like a bass player would on a bass, if you can imagine how that sounds. What we're going to try to do is simulate that on the piano. We're going to use the fifth of each chord quite a bit on beat 3. Now, where the chord is coming to a chord change in the very next measure, if possible, we're going to try to step into that chord change. So let me give you an example. In measure 1, I'm going to play C as my downbeat. My fifth that I'll use on beat 3 is just simply going to be up to G, and I'm going to come back down to C for the following measure, measure 2. Now, measure 3 has an E minor chord, so we're going to use an E in the bass. But I'm going to try to walk up. Rather than go back to the fifth again on beat 3, I'm going to walk it up on beat 3 to D, and here I arrive on my E root for measure 3. Now once there, I'm going to use the fifth, not above because that's going to take me too far out of the hand position. I'm going to use the fifth just right here on beat 3. And you'll see the very next measure is an F bass that we need. So I'm going to approach that by step. I'm going to go above the F for beat 3, and here's measure 5. Now likewise, if I go up for the third beat to the fifth, which is up here, it's going to take me too far out of my hand position. I'm instead going to elect to play this C on beat 3. And the next measure we're approaching is a C chord. So I'm going to step down to that on beat 3 and approach it this way by step. So here's the first beat of that C chord, which is measure 7. Now, since in measure 7, 8, and 9, if you look at the root movement of those basses, measure 7 is C, measure 8 is C sharp diminished, measure 9 is a G7 over D, so that slash D means D is in the left hand. So our bass is already very smooth going measure to measure. So in this way, it's not going to hurt us to just alternate between C, the fifth of C, and then going down to C sharp for the diminished. The fifth of C sharp diminished is still a G. Sorry, the lights went out there. So back on measure 7, C, the fifth is G, then C sharp for the C sharp diminished. We're going to still use our fifth of G, and then we are going to come to measure 9 with a G7 over D. So for the third beat of that measure, you can go up to actually what's now our root of G, and in measure 10, we're going to just stretch way down to get the next G on the downbeat of measure 10. That will allow us to do the fifth on the third beat, and then we're back to the C in measure 11. We're going to do the fifth there then. It's since we're in this kind of a position, I'm going to go down for the fifth to here, and then it's going to let me walk up nicely to the A7, followed by the fifth there on beat 3, walks right down to the D for the D7, and I'm already closer here to this A, so I'm going to stay in this range for third beat, and I'm going to just go right back down to that A again because it's going to allow me to walk up from the G. Now we're just going to do these single bass lines. We're going to follow these chord symbols: G, A sharp, and then B. And then I would just recommend to do the fifth of the upcoming C chord here, or the root of the G chord, however you want to look at it, which brings us back. So let me just play through that single bass line, kind of that walking style bass line where appropriate, from the beginning. So I'll play all 16 bars, take notes, try it, feel free to pause it and work on certain parts of it. You just want to get this ingrained in your head. Of course, you want to try to do this by sight without writing in the notes. So from the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 1, ready, go. Now we're going to talk about how to harmonize this with the right hand. I mentioned before that the right hand is going to be playing the melody primarily with these top fingers of the hand. Underneath that, you're going to be able to supply the harmonization always on beat 2. So in some measures, this is a little bit tricky because you are playing a melody note as well on beat 2, or you're kind of tied across with a dotted quarter note followed by an eighth, so you've got to insert that on beat 2. I'm going to just talk about using the melody note that we start with for the first measure, and then always remember that on beat 2 you're filling that underneath the note. You don't ever want to put the harmonization over the top of the melody because that confuses our ears and we lose the line of the melody. So make sure on beat 2 we're going to fill in that C chord just right underneath. This happens to be in a first inversion then if you put it all together with the melody. And this can be used for those two measures. We're not going to change it. So if I play the two measures together with the melody, I'm going to move my pinky up and just moving my pinky around a lot. So in fact, I've played that whole thing with my pinky, allowing this to be free down here. Then when I get to the third measure, it's E minor. Here's my melody. And guess what? We get to use that same filler on beat 2 again. We'll use that for the following measure as well. So measures 3 and 4 will look like this with the melody. Here's beat 1, 2, okay. Now going on our next melody note in measure 5 is the A. We need that major 7th in the key of F because this F chord symbol is a major, the triangle. So we're going to use this as our 7th, and we're going to use the 5th here, left hand will be providing the root, so we get a nice sound. But for now we're just going to focus on that right hand. First beat is by itself, second beat is here, and then our melody. Again, you see I'm kind of walking that pinky quite a bit. Nice thing is for the C chord, we're still right in place. Okay, so again, from measures 5 to 7, we're going to use the same bit of harmonization. The beginning 4 measures, we use this. Now we've just moved it down to here for the next measures 5 through 7. I'll play that, measures 5 through 7. Now for the C sharp, we're still going to use this. We're going to adjust what we had here down to our 7th, because that's our diminished 7 right there. So here's beat 1, beat 2. Going on to measure 9, we're going to move our hand because we have the G followed by an interval of a 5th. So we're going to move up to here. We're actually going to play the melody here with the thumb, and that's going to allow us to fill out underneath beat 2 with our 7th and our 3rd. So that will be what beat 2 sounds like, including our melody. There's beat 3, here's next beat, next measure. We're going to continue using that, of course, on beat 2. Now we're going to just simply shift the thumb up for measure 11, because we've got another big interval up here to the E on beat 2. It's easy enough to fill that in as our C chord. So measure 11, beginning. I repeat that again. Let me do that so it sounds. And then here's the D sharp. So on beat 2, we ended up with the melody included. We had this and this underneath, all played simultaneously for measure 11. This works really well for the A7. We've got this in the melody in measure 12, and we're going to just simply do a C sharp. Measure 13 then has D in the melody. This is really close. It's kind of crunchy. We need the 3rd. We need the 7th on beat 2. So here's beat 1. So you can see how close that is. What I'm doing is I'm just lighting up that C pretty much as soon as I've played it. Then I have to jump down to A. I'm going to use the C and F sharp, just inverted now. Cool thing is here in measure 15, we're going to use this on the downbeat because we don't have time. Every beat is changing a chord. You're going to keep the G on this measure right here, measure 15, and then for this chord you're going to move up to that, and then this, and then we have this on beat 2 of measure 16. So I do want to clarify that one more time. Measure 15 is going to start in this inversion of G. We're going to keep G common tone move to the 2nd beat. When you have an A underneath, it brings out that A minor 7 quality. And then we have very nice smooth voice leading here. We're keeping the G the whole time. So let me play you one example of the right hand just by itself, what this looks like with the chords from the beginning. 1, 2, 3. Feel free to practice that, and then once you're ready to add in the walking bass style where appropriate, this is what the finished product should sound like. bars 1 through 16 of I'll Be With You in Apple Blossom Time. 1, 2, 3.